Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. She and I were high school sweethearts who attended a major university together in the late 90s, got married, had 2 children, and lived the suburban family life. In December 2017, nearly 18 years into our marriage and 25 years into our relationship, she dropped a series of bombshells on me, the aftershocks of which continue to affect me. From love bombing to daddy issues, deception to confession, narcissism, sexual promiscuity, and questions of masculinity. This true life tale has it all. I am certain this is among the most bizarre stories anyone has encountered, as my life overnight turned from one of middle-class white suburbia to what seemed like a risque episode of Sex and the City. I was unexpectedly led down a journey involving hundreds of hours of racking my brain and digging through college memorabilia to reconstruct timelines of memories I had no idea I would have any reason to revisit. I poured myself into articles and podcasts on topics ranging anywhere from dating, female psychology, infidelity to hookup culture, and reached out to many of the corresponding authors or hosts, in which I offered tidbits of my story in search of some way to process it. I simultaneously found myself reinvigorated with a completely new outlook on my life, but also left with deeply devastating questions of my own masculinity, as I realized my life and marriage was nothing at all what I had believed it to be. I began seeing her when she was 15 and a half, and we were quite opposite. Although I was a year older, that summer I was excited about attending Boy Scout camp and had never seriously dated anyone. By contrast, she was extremely open since our first date that she had gone out with, albeit casually, numerous boys before me. There were multiple boys in our small rural hometown she dated, as well as in a wealthy suburb where her father served as a police officer. There, she volunteered for a couple of summers at a children's safety town along with other local teens. She regaled me with stories of rich boys showing off by zipping her around in their dad's Ferraris. This seemed almost otherworldly to me, as I knew little of life outside of our farming town. She told me stories about staying multiple weekends down on the river prior to dating me, with a friend's family who owned a boat. Staying out all night on the docks to hang out with other vacationing teens or locals was something she really enjoyed. She had many adventurous stories of sneaking off to parties in the middle of the night, only to barely make it back to the boat by the time her friend's parents were getting up. After getting serious with me, she completely stopped going to the river. I never quite understood this, as it always seemed like she had fun. In an unusual nuance, she presented to me in near ceremonial fashion a slinky tank top, which allegedly she used to wear down on the river, and did so as a sign that she no longer needed it. She admitted that before me, she had a bad habit of dating multiple boys at once. She told me of a few close calls in which she nearly got caught, but confessed it was an exciting challenge to her to balance that myriad of relationships without one boy finding out about the other. She was from a good home in which both of her parents worked professional jobs. They saved for her college. Her dad was the epitome of the hyper-masculine man, an overprotective father who made a point to show off his hundreds of police shooting trophies to prospective boyfriends, and she was an honor student. Albeit I was very naive. I gave relatively little thought to these stories. I assumed dating to her meant the same as it did to me, dinners and movies, which to me was about as exciting as life got at that age, and presumed her stories were some form of embellishment. I'm a carefree spirit without a suspicious bone in my body, and am hopelessly oblivious. I had no concept of establishing boundaries, asserting myself, or of demanding respect. She, by contrast, was jaded, highly suspicious, and a sharp, quick-witted girl who many believed would become a fiery attorney. She did a lot of good for me. Prior to dating her, I was a sheltered, nervous wreck who struggled to make any serious decisions and had precious little real-world experience. She brought me out of my shell and got me to start living life and experiencing things I likely never would have. Since I am a year older, I started college first, but it was during my senior year I began to see a narcissistic tendency in her personality, which I came to know quite well over the years. Her parents worked very hard and sacrificed a lot by making their entire lives since she was born all about providing for her. She was the daughter who could do no wrong. The problem was that they talked about their sacrifices her entire life, inundating her, along with everyone they knew, with everything they did for her. over the years that went to her head. She entered her late childhood, early adulthood years subconsciously, expecting the same sacrifices out of other people, namely me. And in her mind, it was an expectation that I was just supposed to know that I should delay starting college until she graduated high school. She was offended to her core that I was even thinking of applying for college, not to mention the fact that I did so. She made my senior year all about her being left behind, and in no way about me graduating or of any opportunities it might create. She spent the last half of my senior year, and especially the corresponding summer, hurling non-stop accusations at me that I was going to forget about her, find someone else, or cheat on her. At just 17 years old, she conjured up some seriously wild assertions. These ranged anywhere from her imagining college girls throwing themselves at me on my first day, to accusing me that I was going to cheat on her with every girl I met, to envisioning me attending sex parties where I would have sex with multiple girls in a single night. By her insistence, I got her a small diamond promise ring before leaving for college, called her every day, worked a job in the chow hall to pay for my phone bill, and faithfully took a charter bus home every other weekend all year to visit her. I participated in absolutely zero hookups, never so much as even heard of such a thing as a sex party, and she joined me at college the following year. She was highly successful, and even had the honor of being a speaker at her own graduation of several thousand students. During her student career, she held multiple university-appointed positions. In that capacity, she worked and traveled for the university with multiple guys, but I knew each of them, and some of them well. She could be smothering, so I looked forward to a little free time to myself to go camping with my cousins when she traveled, and I thought nothing of it. After marriage and kids, our sex life became non-existent for a decade. Her narcissism, which I first saw in high school, was on full display throughout those years. She insisted I immediately become a hyper-masculine provider who worked 2 or 3 simultaneous jobs while attaining multiple promotions and raises to completely provide the stay-at-home mom life she demanded. The fact that I was never able to accomplish this certainly played a role in her losing all interest in me. She often used the word yuck at the idea of sex. I went through years of wholesale neglect while working multiple jobs at her demand. This, along with a major issue involving our 14-year-old daughter coming to a head, resulted in a crisis in our marriage, in which she experienced nothing short of a mental breakdown in December 2017. During the final 2 weeks of the year, she freely, of her own accord, without any coaxing from me, as I had no reason to even ask, began telling me about an entire life of hers that I knew absolutely nothing about. To be certain, she had a long history of spinning exaggerated tales of grandeur about her jobs and other experiences, in which she would retell a story she had simply heard about, but do so in the first person, as if she was the central actor in the first drama. This, however, was something entirely different. That December, it was as if she was in a trance, with her confessions free of any embellishments, glorifications, absurd twists, or emotional outbursts. She simply told me. On many levels it was addicting. For 20 years she always had to be right, always had to win every disagreement, always had to be better than me, and her career and/or studies always took precedent over mine. In those 2 weeks of December, our relationship flipped on its head. First, she was insatiable with sex. She craved me like never before, offered anything I wanted, anywhere and anytime, while performing acts on me I had never experienced. Simultaneously, she was throwing herself at my mercy, admitting for no particular reason some of the most egregious things a wife could tell her husband, begging forgiveness, heaping praise upon me about how much better of a person I was than her, and groveling about how she didn't deserve me. Up until that moment, I had always believed, albeit I had never given it that much thought, that I was the only person she had ever been with. This was certainly reinforced by the fact that we never had sex until marriage, and she barricaded herself in our apartment bedroom on our wedding night in a full panic. That December, she confessed to having become sexually active beginning at age 14. The multiple guys she had enjoyed the challenge of dating at once in early high school were all sexual in some way. Funning around with rich boys in their fancy cars always involved sexual favors in return. The trips to the river on summer weekends were of the same nature, and that the slinky tank top she gave me had been her hookup attire. She told me that in case I still had it, I should burn it. She attributed a lot of this behavior to daddy issues, which I knew next to nothing about. Her dad had worked 3 simultaneous jobs at the police department throughout her childhood, and she barely ever saw him. When he was around, he was always tired, yet had endless expectations of her, while to everyone else, she was the daughter who could do no wrong. Privately, he never let her believe he was impressed by or satisfied with any of her accomplishments. As an early teen, she developed a craving for male attention and found an endless well of it through sexual favors. Simultaneously, since her dad was also the epitome of the overprotective father, she developed an unhealthy relationship with masculinity, which ended up deeply affecting my life. For her, the sexiest man was the one who had the guts to defy her father, not obey him, since his rules without question was that no boy was ever going to disrespect, threaten, or especially put his hands on his daughter. She subconsciously enjoyed provoking and antagonizing boys to test their boundaries. Those who would assert their masculinity or dominance and demand sexual favors in return for whatever attention they would offer were highly likely to receive it. Among her most thrilling experiences were with the rich boys from the wealthy suburb, who her father especially despised. They were each entitled and arrogant, which was the complete antithesis of him. In defiance of her father, many would take her out for joy rides in their sports cars, even when he forbade it. This thrill resulted in her giving a plethora of hand and blowjobs on lunch breaks from Safety Town. Some performed even as the boy drove her through town. In just days, I went from a lifetime of assuming I was her only to her revealing that her body count by the time I went out with her at 15 and a half was likely north of 20 boys and a few men. She also admitted that it was her own behavior which had been the primary driver behind all the accusations she made at me, that I was going to cheat on her upon arriving at college, because that was exactly what she would have done had our ages been reversed. This was merely the beginning. Over the preceding days that December, one by one, she revealed to me deep secrets of multiple guys she had cheated on me with, all of them sexual, either during her senior year in high school, when I was away at college, or throughout our university years together. She confessed everything from the who, the what, and the where of each fling, and her stories from early high school about enjoying the challenge of dating multiple guys at once flooded my mind. I realized that I had been wrong, and that those stories had in no way been embellishments. Each confession kicked a little more wind out of me, as I not only knew all the men, but also every fling took place in some form or another, right under my nose. He clearly had a type, as all but one were of the alpha male sort, athletic, muscular, and highly driven, who in her words take what they want and don't feel bad. This corresponded with the unhealthy relationship she developed with masculinity as an early teen. She craved the guy who made demands of her no matter the risk, and the fact that they did not care that she had a boyfriend, fiancé, likely made them all the more appealing. The high school guy while I was away at college was a 6'4" solid muscle 4 student athlete who went to Yale on a football scholarship as a pre-med student. I was aware at the time that she was casually dating him while I was at college, but I didn't want to be some controlling boyfriend whom she would grow to resent. I had absolutely no idea anything sexual was going on and assumed they were just going out to the movies. In 2017, however, she revealed that the relationship became sexual within roughly the first week of the two going out. In hindsight, I assessed that I simply didn't get sex. I didn't understand that it was something expected or demanded of in a relationship. I didn't get that it could result from primal urges or ever suspect that someone would intentionally try to move in on someone else's boyfriend, or the idea of a sexual affair was simply lost on me. I could literally shake hands with a man who was having an affair with my girlfriend or fiancé, which I did multiple times, having not the first clue that something was going on. She very much understood all this and took full advantage of my gullible nature. She wore my promise ring and enjoyed me taking her out on dates every other weekend that I came home from school. Simultaneously, she wore his football jersey to school every Friday, as if she was his girlfriend, and went out with him on the opposite weekends when I was away. The worst case scenario was that she even duped me into driving her to his house while I was home on Christmas break, supposedly just to drop off something, but left me sitting unsuspectingly in his driveway for 2.5 hours on a cold December night while she hooked up with him. It was a December afternoon in 2017, when everything I thought I knew came crashing down. I stood frozen in the living room, barely breathing, feeling the weight of betrayal like an anvil crashing onto my chest. The air was thick with secrets, and every word she uttered felt like knives slicing through the fabric of our lives. My wife, the woman I thought I had completely known for 25 years, unveiled a truth so shocking it reshaped the very foundation of our suburban existence. "You don't understand, Chris. I was a different person then. I had my reasons," she said, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of shame and defiance as she picked at the frayed edges of her sweater, an involuntary action I had come to associate with her anxiety after so many years together. I was about to scream, about to unleash the torrent of anguish that roiled within me when she continued, "I can't rewrite my past, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But you deserve to know." These words echoed through the hollow of our once happy home, a home now shadowed by her confessions, which felt like small bombs dropping one after another, each one more devastating than the last. Love bombing had been her specialty, but now the truth was exploding between us like torturous fireworks on New Year's Eve, leaving emotional shrapnel in their wake. Retracing our memories felt like wandering through a haunted house. Each loving glance we had exchanged over the years now carried the weight of her hidden past, turning sweet recollections sour as I pieced together the girl I thought I loved with the woman standing before me. I had been her innocent confidant, lulled into a false sense of security, while she navigated a double life involving boys in lavish cars and secret encounters that would make my blood boil if I only had known. "Tell me everything, Isabella," I rasped, my throat tight from the tension. I needed to understand this shadow that loomed over us. "You said I deserved it. I deserved more than this life filled with your lies." My heart pounded, a relentless drumbeat of pain and anger that demanded to be heard. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she struggled to confront the wreckage of her past. "I didn't want you to see that side of me. I was ashamed. I thought love meant nothing more a game than a commitment. I was reckless. And I've always been a thrill seeker, Chris. You know that. But I was young. And stupid." Betrayal still churned beneath my skin, sharp and consuming. With every confession, she unveiled layers of lies that piled higher than I could ever have imagined. Was the girl I fell for merely a disguise she wore? Did I ever truly know her, I wondered? Or had I been lulled into complacency by the soft lullabies of a love I now realized was only confined to half-truths? The memories came flooding back, her laughter as she described late-night escapades with friends at the river, the way she had coyly tossed her hair back while reminiscing about boys with fancy cars. I had brushed them off as innocent tales. The carefree spirit of our youth colored my recollections, but now they transformed into painful reminders of the secrets she shielded from me. "What about me, the football player? Did you sleep with him while I was away at college?" Her silence spoke louder than words. It bathed over me in an agony that felt like drowning. I could only watch as her bravado crumbled, revealing a girl haunted by choices made long ago. "Chris, please. No. Stop. Just admit it. All those years I was the fool. You played me while I gave you my heart." My voice rose, thick with emotion, the rage welling like a tempest ready to consume everything in its path. She grasped my hand, pleading in frantic eyes. "I was young. I was stupid. It was different then. I had no idea how to value love. I just wanted to fit in. But you gave me every reason to want to be better." I thought I could change. The coldness in my chest screamed louder than her pleas. Change? The very backbone of her deception lay in the notion that I would never see the girl behind the mask. Her acknowledgement of her past only deepened the fissure between us, as her youthful recklessness became a chasm of lies that swallowed whole the years I had invested in our family. She began recalling one affair after another, each revelation a fresh knife twisting deeper. I felt like a spectator forced to watch the destruction of my own heart. It wasn't the sexual encounters that stung. It was the emotional betrayal inherent in each one. I was a hollow shell of the confident man I had once been, empty and gaping with the influx of her past as it seeped into the corners of my awakened reality. It's not just about the affairs, is it? You didn't just cheat on me. You built a fantasy world, one where you were the center of attention, and I was merely an afterthought. I shoved past her, needing space, feeling fury rise like molten lava inside me. Chris, I needed validation. Chris, I needed validation. I was never enough for my dad, she cried, her voice breaking, her admissions spilling like dammed waters breaking free. He made me think I was less than everyone else, that I always had to prove I was worthy. I craved attention, and that need twisted me, drove me to that life. You need to understand. Her words dripped with desperation, but they felt like lead to my ears. Understanding how to process this anger was my next challenge. How to reconcile those moments of intimacy. We shared those shared dreams and shared pain against the backdrop of her adultery. What kind of a fool had I been? In truth, I didn't want to be her counselor. The cracks widening in my resolve showed unmistakable signs of her deceit. Instead, I searched for clarity, for an escape route into the realm of revenge, a solution that could cleanse me of this domestic nightmare. I wanted to set the scale right. I envisioned nights of plotting my revenge, internet searches that led me to communities of the betrayed. I pictured methodical searches through her past relationships. Her open window of confession was a chance for me to peel back the layers of lies she had spun with such ease. Your father raised you to be this way, and you've used me as your vent. But I don't know if I can stay, Isabella. Not after this. You've wrecked everything we built together like it was nothing more than a game to you. Every lie. I can't see you the same way anymore. You're the very thing I never wanted in my life. Tears streamed down her face, but her agony acted as a backdrop to my bubbling rage. It was entirely too little, too late. I'll find out everything. I won't forget, I shouted, half pleading, half warning. I was determined to gather every shred of information for a reckoning she couldn't see coming. The descent of revenge loomed over me, a shadow promising retribution for the hollow years I had endured. As the light dimmed in the room, I felt the consequences of her choices stinging the rusted edges of my heart. Rebuilding had turned into a quest for vengeance. I would not be another man abandoned in the chaos of her past. I would be the architect of my own closure, and she would learn what it meant to be the object of true betrayal. And so, my path toward vengeance began, steeped in the horrors of her past, but longing for my own justice within this fractured life we had built. The somber chill of that December evening lingered as I stood in the dark, twisting emotions coiling tightly within me. Betrayal was no longer a mere word. It forged a brand new reality just as stark as the reality Isabella had unveiled. The warmth of love had slithered away, leaving a frosty void I had never known. It was time, I told myself, to turn my pain into purpose. My quest for revenge would not just envelop Isabella, but also those who had been complicit in this sick narrative, a twisted web of deceit. I knew I needed allies in my grim crusade. As I paced the dimly lit room, flashes of anger lined my steps. Those who oversaw the theater of my betrayal would pay. I needed to piece together how her affairs intertwined like a convoluted tapestry, unveiling each man who had flaunted himself in front of me while I played the fool, the oblivious husband. My first step was obvious. I needed solid corroboration, proof of Isabella's infidelity. I logged on to the few social media platforms I had resigned to ignore and began a meticulous search for any indication of her past. Each keystroke felt like a loaded gun, the air thick with the promise of discoveries that would potentially unearth her secrets. Scrolling through her connections, gleaming photos of parties, laughter, and calculated candid shots, I stumbled upon the one named Mom, the football player, the bastion of her past. I studied his mocking grin, muscles rippling beneath a fitted shirt as he stood indifferent to my crumbling family. I had evidence, but it felt like I needed more than just images. I needed to witness the reality written across his face firsthand. Weeks unfolded in brutal succession, each day more entangled in the desperate schemes of my unfolding revenge. Plans solidified as I reached out to connect with old friends, finding out who still ran in Isabella's circle, the same ones who had knowingly advanced her lavish lifestyle, while I bore the weight of their concealments. Secrets had a way of pooling in corners, spilling out of cups once they were pushed too far. In the seediness of late-night diners and covert gatherings, whispers paved my path, Details on where to locate, blossoming from the lips of her former acquaintances. Days turned to weeks, wrapped in investigation as I gathered insights that burned sharply in my chest. Training myself to withstand the pain of reliving each confession Isabella birthed out of desperation, I focused on keeping the knife of vengeance sharp in my mind. I made sure her deceit wouldn't go unpunished. One fateful Friday night, I solidified my plan to confront him. I learned he often frequented a local bar, laid back as if he owned the world. I knew that to catch him off guard was pivotal. He never anticipated his past could return with a cold vengeance. My heart raced as I parked outside the dimly lit establishment, a cacophony of noise and laughter wafting from within. As I stepped inside, the dim glow of beer-laden tables exposed the scene. The bar was filled with people blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just outside the doors, unaware that they were witnessing my metamorphosis from oblivion to ferocity. Looking at him as he laughed raucously with friends, I could feel the shadows of betrayal wrapping tightly around me. Deep breaths I urged myself, each inhale fueling my resolve. I'd bring the full consequences of his actions crashing down around him. Spotting an empty stool at the bar, I sauntered over. The man was unsuspecting, lost amidst the stories that mirrored mine. I approached him quietly, sliding into the seat beside him. "You think being an athlete gives you the right to disrespect the lives of others?" I asked. My tone smooth yet ice cold. He turned to me, surprise flickering momentarily on his face, quickly replaced by a haughty smirk. "I'm the husband you didn't even care to remember when you mutually destroyed my wife's family, all for a few cheap thrills," I spat, venomous yet steady. The laughter around us muted as my words sliced through to the core. I leaned closer, locking eyes with him. "You think you're a man? Try standing in the fine line of what it means to wreck lives for sport. What I had with Isabella was real, and you treated it like it was a discarded toy. You're nothing but a coward hiding behind a wall of muscles and bravado." A twinge of nervousness danced across M's features, but quickly, he flashed a defiant grin that sickened me. "She made her own choices, man. You should have kept her on a shorter leash. Not my fault she came to see me, and I gave her what you clearly couldn't." His words were punchy in the dim atmosphere, sparks of rage igniting a fierce desire inside me. I gritted my teeth, holding back the wave of fury that almost urged me to lunge for him. This was about dismantling, not just him but everything he represented. Everything Isabella had pretended was a past erased in the haze of lies. I reached for his collar, dragging him closer. His bravado faltered as my grip tightened. With every second that passed, the awareness of everyone around us heightened, their curious eyes glued to our confrontation. But I had carefully calculated this moment. I wanted witnesses, a final act undercutting Isabella's secret world of deception. "I hope you're ready for the consequences of your actions, man. This is just the beginning." I released him, watching the confusion and fear creep back into his eyes before stepping back, aware the gravity of confrontation was palpable in the air. Returning home that night, the shadows in my heart felt slightly less suffocating. My power over her twisted narrative was swirling into focus, and the night's revelations fueled my thirst for ensuring Isabella would witness the aftermath of her lies. But even within me, beneath the weight of anger, discontent prevailed, a small ember. Knowing we were still trapped together in this life I now saw as a battlefield of betrayal. Weeks passed. Revenge brewed like a storm looming close. I feeling smug satisfaction rise within myself. I furthered my investigation, correlating details about her other lovers into specific moments throughout their history, tagging every missed supper invitation, late-night work discussion, and frivolous excuse into a timeline I could wield as both a weapon and shield. But I did not merely want to accumulate evidence. I needed an audience for the crescendo of humiliation to hit hard. Her reckoning would come as an unanticipated climax of all her choices. There was power in carefully orchestrating when I would finally unveil the depth of her betrayal, forcing her to confront the ripped seams of our lives, shredded by her desire for control and validation. The last threads of my brother-in-arms, those unwitting friends and friends of friends of friends who had been at the brink of her past, fell neatly into place, each creating pieces to form a storytelling culmination she never foresaw. A group gathering appeared on horizon. The perfect event she had planned months prior would be the stage of her final shame. It would be a celebration, mingled with confessions, a confluence of suspense driven by her past actions. As the party neared, I prepared the ultimatum, each invitation slipping into their hands, bodies buzzing with anticipation of impending drama. I needed every friend from the tapestry of deception attending, weaving everything toward a dramatic confrontation online. Months of restraint shifted into anticipation. This was it. I had carefully orchestrated the manner in which I would reveal her betrayals, the divine scene to display her unraveling. The day arrived within a striking revelation. The gathering was bright, laughter ringing around and drinks flowing sweetly. Isabella, overwhelmed with excitement, spoke to guests she had never realized were shadowing me through their connection to her past. I stood on the sidelines, consuming each moment with a sharper focus, waiting to set it in motion. Finally, as the spotlight hovered around her, I rose, breaking through the veil of casual conversations. "Everyone, may I have your attention?" Silence rippled through the crowd as the chatter faded, their conversations fading into hushed whispers. She turned, confusion swirling across her face like drifting smoke. "Chris, what are you doing?" I let my rage simmer beneath the surface before launching forth. "I think this is the perfect time to unearth a few family secrets that have long been buried. You see, Isabella here has been living a lie, all her stories tinged with cheating and deceit. While I bore her pain, she hid behind her mask, roaming freely in her past life, with men who had no respect for her vows. It's time she faced the consequences for her actions." Shocked gasps enveloped the room, but I pressed on, revealing names of those who had shattered her trust. Each detail unfurled across the room. Photographs flew across the bar top, documenting precisely every ounce of infidelity she had engaged in. The eyes widened incredulously, as her laughter was replaced with a leaden silence. As I laid bare the darkness, the once bright atmosphere turned bleak, her friends' expressions shifting from warmth to coldness. I felt exhilarated, yet a heavy blanket wrapped tightly around Isabella, shamed mistress of her own betrayal. Watching her crumble, visibly shredding at each word I powered through, reveled a cathartic wave of power coursing through my veins. It was a reckoning she hadn't prepared for, one I orchestrated from her lies into the forefront of judgment. I stepped closer, locking eyes with the horrified figure of my once beloved wife. "You said it, Alice. Having my fun. Well, guess what? Fun always comes at a cost. And now you'll meet just the price for thinking I'd remain your foil." The finality sank in as I summoned the echo of that night. I'd gathered the momentum to unveil Isabella's betrayal, surrounded by all she had cultivated, now turned to ash. Living the lie had cost her everything. I stood against so much pain that fueled my vengeance, watching her lose everything. The laughs, comradeship she had once commanded to whisper her name, unraveled in the darkness of her own machinations. Stepping from the stage of her farce, concluding in bitter remembrance, I delivered the closing remark, the words that would hang forever between us like an indelible tattoo. "Isabella, it's time to realize, just because I'm driving doesn't mean I'm the one putting the pedal to the metal. With all your history of cheating, I think it's better for you to learn that you can't just coast through life at the expense of others. It's over. You've officially lost everything. Welcome to reality. And enjoy your ride on the highway of regret." The room buzzed with muffled shock. Disgust swirled tightly around her head like a vice, the very embodiment of a woman crushed under the weight of the lies she had spun. She stood amidst the ashes of her affair, darkly illuminated by her woven history, a life built on betrayal that now lay shattered. Silent anguish pulsated within her as she surveyed her newfound destiny, submerged in a fitting punishment, leaving behind the facade of the vibrant life she had thrived in, embracing her emptiness as the last pillars of her visualization crumbled beneath the weight of truth. Trapped amongst the ruins, casting her the face of once adored love, transforming into bitterness with a final piercing word that resonated in the shadows of my heart. The flames of revenge extinguished as the night closed in, and our lives changed forever. And I drove home alone, intoxicated by the victory of honed confrontations, while she stood on the precipice of her undoing, forever tormented by the echoes of the life she had chosen to betray. In those final moments, I realized revenge could never truly mend wounds, but there simmered a sickling satisfaction in witnessing her taste retribution, a cold, unforgiving cycle fueled by her choices. I emerged scarred yet renewed, knowing the lines between love and loathing no longer obscured beneath complex ideations forged in complexity. Life had settled into a different landscape. Embers of betrayal flickered beneath the starkness of truth. Her past held her in an unyielding grasp, while I fled the wreckage of our life, stepping into a new realm as Chris, a man released from the chains of broken commitments, and not a moment too soon. All that remained was the stark truth of revenge unspooled, but in my heart, clarity remained. Revenge was a blade that cut both ways, but in the end, I knew deep down there was a wide chasm that now separated Isabella and me, a legacy written in betrayal, served cold and calculated. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like.